Hi, this is Jesse Young for On Watch with Athens Able. I'm standing here with Josh Vander Veen, who is running for Modesto City School Board. And I guess I'll start with what compelled you to run for school board?
Well, I've actually been running for about 2 years now. I ran back in 2009 and had a great race. This is where my wife and I decided to start our family. We haven't had kids yet, but that's on the horizon, and we need to make sure that we're fixing the education system before it's their time. This is where I have a bit of expertise. I'm a little bit younger than the rest of the candidates, and I have the knowledge of a more technological age through education, and I think that our kids need a voice like that on the school board.
Yeah, a little bit closer to actually having gone through the system as it is now, as opposed to 10, 20, 30 years ago, a little bit closer to how it's working now, right?
Definitely. There's a vast difference between what happened when they went to high school and what happened when I went to high school. I did everything on a computer. I did my research on a computer. Even through college, I went to the library 4 times because it just wasn't necessary anymore. I could do better research online, and we need to be teaching our high schoolers this so that they're not confused or held behind in college because they don't have this type of information.
Now, I read in some of the articles about the debates and some of your campaign literature, you want to get computers more involved in the classroom. How would this be achieved?
Well, this is going to be a hard one to sell because we're in a budget crunch at the moment. But I do believe there are private enterprises that have a record of helping districts like ours that need the help with a 20% unemployment rate and with all the problems that we're having. I think we can get HP and Apple to come on board and say Modesto is where they should be spending these dollars, and we should be going after those grants in order to achieve this.
All right. Talking about budget stability and keeping financially sound, what are some ways you think that can be achieved in our school districts?
Well, first of all, let me say the district's done a great job over the last 4 or 5 years managing the budget. They've been scaling back programs instead of cutting them, but we're to the point now that we're going to have to start prioritizing what's important to the district. We're going to have to look at every single program and look at its importance. And also, once we get our house in order a bit, we need to make sure to go to other districts and talk about combining districts within the city. There are 7 school districts that feed into Modesto City high schools, and these could all be brought into one, and that could cut a lot off of the top. They can cut a lot out of administration that way. And we obviously need to go to our teachers and employee unions again and see what they can do to help, because they've been great through this budget process, but it's going to take a little bit of hurt from everybody to get through this.
All right. And consolidating the school districts that feed into Modesto City Schools, would that cause a problem with the number of children that would be coming into it and maybe creating too many schools in the district?
We might have to consolidate some schools with that too. I mean, bringing all those schools into the same umbrella is going to be a tough one, especially for the smaller school districts that like the control over their small school district. But in order to save our entire community, we're going to have to work together. We're going to have to bring our districts together and make sure that we're sharing resources as opposed to everybody being their own entity and just wasting a lot of the taxpayers' money.
How can we bring more community involvement to our schools?
Well, the Modesto Chamber of Commerce has been a big proponent of this. They just had the State of Education, which showed businesses how they can get involved and what some other businesses are doing in the community. And I think Modesto City Schools needs to make sure that we're a part of this. We need to bring them into vocational education, where we can teach kids an actual skill coming out of high school and make sure that business is involved in this, so the kids are learning the skills that they're actually going to need once they get out of high school and go for a job.
All right, there are some who would argue that involving business too much in how we teach our kids is focusing education more on job skills, just kind of making, producing workers instead of children who can critically think and be able to know right from wrong, maybe speak up in the workplace if a practice isn't too ethical. How would you respond to that kind of criticism of bringing business more involved with schools?
I think as long as we make sure that our focus is on making these kids good community members, not good employees, not good people within our community, but community members that are actually providing for our community and giving back to our community. And that's how we're going to instill a lot of the values that we have here in Modesto. We're a town of family values where we look at hard work and we look at honesty and making sure that everybody's taken care of, and that's what we should be teaching our children. We have to start from a very young age making sure that they become active members of our community.
I've noticed in the time I went to high school, there were certain high schools that were kind of looked down upon because of the shape they were in, maybe the area they're in. And since then, 2-3 more high schools have opened up, really nice looking, have a lot of great stuff going on, a lot of great programs. How can we make sure that all the high schools have maybe not all the same kind of equipment and studies programs, but just kind of an equitable share of basically just a good learning environment.
A good learning environment is important. We need to make sure our schools are safe, and we need to make sure our schools are clean. And we have a great department at CSEA, from CSEA, the classified employees that do a great job at keeping up with their schools. And they're doing more and more every day just because we're losing more and more money every day. We need to make sure that we are focusing on a bit more renovation than building now. We're not going to be opening up any new high schools anytime soon, so what we need to be focusing on from here on out is renovation of some of the older high schools. We have some great jewels in our community. I mean, Modesto High School is the second oldest high school this side of the Mississippi, and it's great that we can say that a high school with that much history is right here in Modesto.
Yeah, there's 6, 7 or so high schools now in Modesto, and I know Bayer, Johansson, and Enoch's are all fairly close to each other. Really nice high schools, but again, I remember reading in the paper recently, Davis was referred to as a ghetto school by somebody talking in front of the school board. And as somebody who went there, I can understand how that kind of preconceived notion would come about, but it still kind of hurts to see that your school that you went to that really wasn't that bad was referred to in that light.
Yeah, and we need to make sure as a community that we're not putting those types of labels on ourselves, because we can get really caught up. I mean, it was used in the board meeting once, and it was used in the paper, and now it's being used now. And I think just as a community, we need to make sure to clean that language up in ourselves and make sure that we're not proponents of this language that we say is such a bad thing. I have a niece that goes to Davis High School, and she loves it there. She's getting a great education. Yes, there are some things that are falling apart at Davis, and we need to make sure those are taken care of. But we have some great kids there, and we have some great teachers that are making a great educational experience.
Now, how many high schools would you say would be enough for a town of our size, and how many could be supported in our school district?
That's a hard question to say at the moment. I mean, we're doing well with the 7 we have. They're not even quite full yet. Most of our schools are impacted, so that impaction is going to spread out a bit now that we have Grigori. It also brought a lot more ADA in because we now include Salida in Modesto City Schools District, and so they're all going to Grigori, and it's a high school right outside of town that it's under the Modesto City Schools District, and I think the 7's good for now. I really don't see us building anytime soon, and I think we have some great facilities that we need to make sure we're using before we build any more.
All right. This is Jesse Young for On Watch with Athens Able, standing here with Josh Vander Veen. I thank you for coming out and talking with us. Again, Jesse Young.